welcome to the Good Morning Show. I'm Eddie Francis, and I am in for Will Sutton. Will is he's off and he's doing things with his wife and stuff because they got an anniversary and all that stuff, all that lovey-dovey stuff. No, happy anniversary to Will and Cheryl. He is taking some much deserved time off to spend with Cheryl. And I really, really hope that you two have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful anniversary weekend. Again, Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton. And joining me this morning, Dr. Andrea Boyles.
Good morning, everyone. It's so wonderful to be back on air with you all.
Yes, good to be hanging out with you, Associate Professor of Sociology and Africana Studies at Tulane. How are things going in your world? You're at the end of an academic year.
Yes. I'm trying to get myself together. Excuse me, you all.
That's all right.
I'm running this morning. But yes, we have finished the spring semester successfully, and so it's more work, just of a different sort.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we are officially, at least I am, officially off onto summer break.
Okay. Did you do the unified commencement?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not. I have, in fact, been traveling a little bit, and I have some research that I am really deep in. It's ongoing.
Really?
It's
Yeah.
ongoing.
Yeah.
And so, as society and different things, events pick up, and evolve, then likewise does my research. And so I've been spending a lot more time, let me say it that way, a lot more time in recent weeks conducting research field work. And so and trying to wrap up a book 3. So to answer your question briefly, I have been traveling.
Okay. I mean, not that I really care about the research and all that. I just want to know how Sterling K. Brown did in his commencement address.
Yes, that's wonderful. I heard well.
No, actually, no. I am curious. Are you at liberty to discuss anything that you're researching right now?
I will say that all of my work, the through line is Black resistance.
Okay.
And collective action is certainly part of that. And as you know, and in fact, as we all are aware, there are quite a few changes, rollbacks, to say the least, that certainly warrants more time across spaces and places. And to be frank, that's dealing directly with a lot of the political dynamics. And so I am wrapping up a 3rd book with regard to that research, but all of these things that are transpiring now, particularly as it relates to the Black community, is certainly part of it. And so I'm busy, even more busy. Let me say it that way. It's par for the course.
Yeah.
And so I unfortunately, but fortunately, I document. That's a significant part of what I do. And so I will be available everywhere that I can be to make sure I document every single action along the way.
Very quickly, first 2 books, what were they about? The titles, what were they about?
The first book is, and thank you for asking, the first book is entitled Race, Place, and Suburban Policing, Too Close for Comfort. And in that book, I basically accounts for a Black community, a poor Black community in the suburbs of St. Louis that had decades and decades of racial contention and ultimately came to be annexed by a white, affluent, suburban neighboring community. They lost almost the entirety of their Black neighborhood.
Wow.
Hundreds of homes were taken in that process. They ultimately, there were 2 gentlemen that emerges out of that community because of the decades of racial tension with the neighboring white community and the local government and police department, which is a part of that. 2 gentlemen, one in particular, shot and killed, long story short, shot and killed a police sergeant in the community, and ultimately was executed a couple of years ago. And another gentleman, he through the same kinds of racial tension, opened fire, went into a city council meeting, opened fired, and killed folks in that city council meeting. He himself was killed on site by police.
Yeah.
So these were two black gentlemen. One was a younger black man, and the other was an older black man, entrepreneur. That then ultimately, before I can wrap that up, ultimately Ferguson happens. Michael Brown Jr. is killed within 20 minutes away from this community. Michael Brown was killed. And so I find myself then having to essentially leave that project or wrap that up, and ultimately ended up in Ferguson, which again, is like 15 minutes, 20 minutes up the highway. And really, I document the more than 400 days of Black resistance in Ferguson, the entirety of the Ferguson uprising, and which ultimately I also coined and timestamp as the start of 21st century Black resistance. Because prior to Ferguson, the Ferguson uprising, we had maybe 380 or so days of sustained direct action historically that occurred with the Montgomery bus boycott. It wasn't until Ferguson that we then moved from 380 or so days of direct action, sustained action in Black history, to now we have more than 400 days of sustained action. And so I was there. That St. Louis is where I'm born and raised.
Okay.
So I was there certainly to document all of that. People came from everywhere, of course, and rightfully so. But as a native born, a native of St. Louis, it was crucial. And it would be that any place. It doesn't matter where it is. That's the nature of the work that I do. We tell our stories. We don't wait for other people to do that. We tell our stories. We talk about and contextualize our experiences. We can do that ourselves. And so that is pretty much cutting to the crux of the work that I do. And I take it, it is very important. These things, as you know, must be accounted for historically. And to be frank, I sort of endear myself and think about the work that I do in the spirit of Ida B. Wells. Ida B. Wells is idealized in sociology as being the first Black woman sociologist who was boots on the ground accounting for the experiences of Black people. In fact, we know what we know about even the race war in East St. Louis because of Ida B. Wells documenting through the Red Record. We have the Red Record because of her. But also she, was a journalist. And so she's both, and she identifies herself as both a student of sociology and a journalist. And so likewise is the case for me. I do the same. I obviously being here, I work in many respects from a journalistic angle, but also I am on the ground, boots on the ground, documenting and accounting for our experiences in a systematic way. So that's where we are. That's what I've been doing. And that second book is entitled "You Can't Stop the Revolution." I'm losing my train of thought about the title. "You Can't Stop the Revolution." And it is social disorder and social ties in post-Ferguson America.
So
community disorder and social ties in post-Ferguson America.
So we're going to go to a commercial break. However, there's a question I want to put on your mind really quickly for when we come back.
Sure.
And that is, and I don't know, I feel like we talked about this the last time you and I were together, but it feels like Black folks have taken sociology to another level, the scholars. It seems like a lot of you have done that. And I want to talk to you about that when we come back, because I think that is an extraordinarily important thing to kind of explore.
Sure.
In the meantime, this is the Good Morning Show. I'm Eddie Francis, in for Will Sutton. Joining me, Dr. Andrea Boyles, and we're going to be back in just a little bit on WBLK, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
This is your news update for WBOK from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Kubel, and here are today's headlines for you. Happening today, a controversial proposal for a new congressional map is up for debate. Senate Bill 121 will go before the Louisiana House and Governmental Affairs Committee. The proposed map would include only one majority black district. The full Senate approved it after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the current map with 2 majority black districts. New Orleans leaders are set to announce plans for infrastructure improvements across the city. The plan is to assess, to repair, and to modernize aging traffic signals to improve public safety, reduce outages, and help traffic flow. A news conference is set for 9:30 this morning. And sports fans, get your passports ready because it is not just the Saints going international this season, but the Pelicans as well. The team announcing they will play 2 regular season games internationally for the first time in franchise history. The Pels will take on the San Antonio Spurs in Paris on January 14th and again in Manchester on January 17th. And that is a look for you at today's headlines. I'm Elizabeth Kubel for WBOK. Have a great day, everyone.
Late nights are made for chillin', and you can do just that every Sunday night at 10 p.m. as DJ Wick brings you The Love Zone. It's the perfect way to top off your weekend with your favorite old and new school ballads. So sit back, relax, and let DJ Wick take you to the Love Zone on WBOK and on the World Wide Web at WBOK1230.com.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
And welcome back to the Good Morning Show. Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton. Joining me, Dr. Andrea Boyle. When she doesn't have anything better to do, she comes to hang out with us over at WBOK.
Oh my gosh. No. I come because I enjoy being here, because I really love and appreciate being able to exchange with our community.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I know the community appreciates it. And right before break, I asked a question because I am fascinated by this. So on my list, on my list of regrets in life, I really wish when I was in college that I had known or had understood sociology in some way, because I would have at least taken an intro to sociology class. I took an intro to psychology class. I'm a mass comm grad, so I took intro to psychology, which I loved. And I took it in my junior year, so I couldn't switch majors. But I took intro to psychology. But there are 2 intro classes I wish I had taken. One was intro to business, and the other was intro to sociology. Mm-hmm. If I had understood how they could help me with my mass comm career at that time. And as I have grown and being married to somebody who has sociology in her background as part of her educational background, and listening to her process things constantly through the sociological lens, one thing I started to take notice of was how many Black sociologists have really done some heavy, heavy work throughout history, especially throughout the 20th century. And it seems to me that is a hidden part of academia that a lot of us don't realize has been very important to the Black community. Talk about the work that Black sociologists do and why you believe is so important.
So one thing right away is that we refuse, Black sociology emerges in the spirit of activism in many respects, academic activism. And beyond. I don't want to just say it certainly is broader than that. But one reason in particular is also that we refuse to allow people, scientists or otherwise, to pathologize our community.
Yeah.
And so we resist that idea to have folks studying us as if we are a specimen. right?
And that was a major complaint of the local Black community after Katrina,
Yes.
that people kept coming to study us.
Yes.
But they were just like, oh, no, we're just here to study. We don't have any answers.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And people do that, across social occurrences, So it would have been that for Hurricane Katrina here. I saw quite a bit of that, with the Ferguson uprising, people in and out, kind of just studying the people and the provocativeness of it all, right? People most interested in watching Black folks loot. Let's have that conversation. People who were more interested in reporting on, let's say if we're thinking about Katrina, Black folks wading through, flood waters and that kind of thing, all the things that are important if you contextualize it right historically, and not use it as space to kind of create this provocativeness around Black suffering, right? We started to think about and refer to those things, even when we're thinking about like Ferguson uprising or other incidents like George Floyd, murder, or Black folks in general, that may face various police shootings and things like that. It starts to become, after a while, depending on who's accounting, it can come over as if Black porn, Black death porn,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like this sense of draw or exploitation around, again, Black suffering and the ability to be able to repeatedly have us exposed to, in the most unproductive and unsustainable ways, have us constantly facing trauma and dealing with it from somebody else's perspective. We push back on that, right?
And it feels like almost as if our suffering to some extent is almost fetishized.
It absolutely is. It
Yeah.
absolutely is. And so what we have discovered, long discovered, thanks to sociologists, great Black sociologists like Joyce Latner, who's written, has a book that I defer to often. It's called The Death of White Sociology, and so we have Black sociological perspectives and theories of our own and things like that, that largely aim to ensure that our people are not fetishized. The reality of it is that we study and document and account for, from various angles, behaviors, behavioral patterns, right? And so that's no different from our community. We're human. And so there are behavioral patterns that certainly emerge out of our community that are deeply affected and influenced outside of our community, our communities. And so we are accounting for those things. We need to be able to talk about those things. I am going to be frank. I am a student of race. I'm an expert of race and all things relative to it, but I'm also a student of it, and I do study it as a result by translation. Or, but the point is that it's about having, for me, let me speak specifically to me. It is about having a relationship with the community, not going in to simply extract from the community. I am, yes, studying and accounting for a number of patterns and social events that affect our community. We have to do that in order to be able to provide answers and offer evidence-based solutions and all kinds of things that would move our people forward. So, and moving our people forward also ultimately means moving everybody forward. But in doing that, it is about not exploiting. It's about developing a genuine, for me, the aim and the goal is to have a genuine relationship with my community, to be able to engage in a way that's meaningful. And I tell people all the time that when we think about activism and things like that, because many in some respects, I am noted or referred to as an activist scholar or a scholar activist, however we want to think about it. But even in that space, I tell people all the time that activism and this work in and of itself, the need or the desire to be in my community and to be accounting for these deeply entrenched experiences that my people, me and my people, I don't want to separate myself because I'm part of that, right? That we faced historically. that's what drove me to the academy, not the other way around. It wasn't the academy that drove me to my people. No, my people drove in our experiences is what drove me to the academy to do the work, in fact, that I actually do daily.
Yeah. So we have to go to Congressman Troy Carter. We're going to take a break. However, in the 8 o'clock hour, I would love for you to dive into something. And that is, you said, when we're moved forward, everyone is moved forward. And that's something that we've heard people talk about. I want to dive into why exactly that is when we get into the 8 o'clock hour. So let's put a pin in that.
Absolutely.
We're going to come back in just a couple of minutes. Congressman Troy Carter is going to join us as he does every Thursday. I'm Eddie Francis, in for Will Sutton. Dr. Andrea Boyles is joining us on WBOK. New Orleans is talking about all day long.
This is your news update for WBOK from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
Partly to mostly cloudy skies for today, but the main thing you will need to dodge is the rain. We are talking about more scattered showers throughout the morning and more so into the afternoon and the evening. Not everyone will see this at the same time. Highs will make it into the mid-80s for us, and then more rain chances are expected as we head into Friday on into the weekend. Those chances really ramping up each afternoon. From the WDSU First Warning Weather Center, I'm Raven Richard.
Missed a show? Want to hear that guest everyone's talking about? WBOK is now streaming on all your favorite podcast apps. Just search WBOK Media, hit download, share with a friend, and don't forget to rate your favorite shows 5 stars. Because when our voices are heard, our impact grows.
Life has a way of shifting priorities, changing needs, and pivoting plans. Home Bank is there for all of them. Their bankers partner with you for every step along the way, from understanding your needs to celebrating your success. Home Bank is invested in the vibrant spirit of our community and in you. So partner with them. Stop on by any banking center in the greater New Orleans area or visit home24bank.com to get started today. Good for business, good for life. Home Bank, a member of the FDIC.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another open enrollment update. Who do I have on the line today?
Hi, you're speaking with Vanessa Scott of BSG of Louisiana.
Can you tell us a little bit about what is open enrollment?
The open enrollment period is for Medicare members that want to change from one plan to another.
Why is open enrollment so important?
Because a lot of people missed out on the annual enrollment period, so they need to have a one-on-one review.
And if you have questions or concerns about your Medicare plans, what should you do?
You just pick up the phone, call 504-621-3687. We even come out to your house. Zero cost to them.
Get with BSG of Louisiana for your Medicare review.
For church groups, senior communities, or disability organizations, call 504-621-3687. We are an independent insurance agency providing information about Medicare-related insurance plans. We are not connected or endorsed by Medicare or the U.S. government.
City Park is where to go when you don't know where to go. Turn towards the city center and start walking. Before long, you'll end up where you belong, at the heart of the city, New Orleans City Park. Stroll along the reeded marsh, wander through the sculpture garden, rest and recharge beneath ancient oak trees. This is where your spirit goes to grow. It's in our nature to yearn for nature. NewOrleansCityPark.org, heart of the city.
We proudly present a moment in reflection of Dr. Norman C. Francis.
Councilman Troy A. Carter.
Dr. Norman C. Francis was my mentor, a servant leader, a giant whose steady hand shaped not only an institution, but my family's destiny. His leadership at Xavier University of Louisiana was historic. He broke barriers as the first Black and first lay president of the university, and only the second African American to lead a Catholic university in the United States. For 47 years, he guided Xavier University with principled, unwavering strength, becoming the longest-serving university president in the nation. He built buildings, expanded opportunities, welcomed the Freedom Riders, rebuilt after Katrina, and transformed Xavier University into a national leader in preparing students for medical and professional schools. But for me, this is personal. In 1971, 55 years ago, my mother, Eartha Flemings Carter graduated from Xavier University as a mother of 6 children. She balanced textbooks and bedtime stories, faith and responsibility. Under Dr. Francis's generous leadership and with the loving embrace of the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament, she found a safe and nurturing place to pursue her education. The nuns encouraged her. The university believed in her. Dr. Francis preserved a culture where discipline, dignity, and faith walked hand in hand. When my mother crossed that stage, she carried 6 children with her in spirit. That moment became a Carter tradition. We're proud Xavierites because Xavier helped shape who we are. Dr. Francis was more than an administrator, more than an educator, more than an iconic leader. He was an institution builder, a civil rights champion, a man of quiet generosity. He believed education was the pathway to justice. He believed lifting one student could lift an entire family. In our case, he was absolutely right. I was proud to introduce legislation alongside my colleagues in the Congressional Black Caucus to honor his extraordinary leadership. His life was long, accomplished, and profoundly impactful. Now it's up to us to carry forward his legacy by advancing educational equity, justice, and opportunity for generations to come. He is now reunited in heaven with his beloved wife, Blanche, having heard the words every faithful servant longs to hear. Well done. My prayers are with his loved ones and with our entire Xavier University family. May he rest in eternal peace.
This moment in reflection of Dr. Norman C. Francis has been proudly presented to you by your friends at WBOK.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
And welcome back to the Good Morning Show. Eddie Francis and for Will Sutton. And we are joined by Dr. Andrea Boyles.
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Good to have you, Associate Professor of Sociology and Africana Studies at Tulane. And also joining us this morning, as he does every single Thursday, Congressman Troy Carter. Good morning, Congressman. How are you?
I am doing great. Good morning to both of you. Always happy to be with you.
Good morning.
So,
good morning, ma'am.
Congressman, you had an interesting hearing that involved funding for TSA workers. And you know, the comments that you made in your hearing were poignant, or pointed, I should say. Those are some pointed comments. But there was a part of it, and I don't remember the gentleman's name, but there was a part of it where a point was made or attempted to be made that people would rather privatization when it comes to TSA. Talk about that and talk about your response to that.
Yeah, that was Republican former Governor Sununu, who implied that privatization would be better because people would not get caught in the clutches of government funding and potential shutdowns, for which I reclaim my time to correct what I believe to be a misplaced statement. Privatization has proven to be a bad thing for the worker. Privatization has proven in many, many cases to take a job or a function away from the protections of labor unions and civil service and those things that protect the rights of workers and put them in the hands of private entities who care less about service and more about profit. We often hear this saying that government should be treated like a business. And there are some applications that may be appropriate. By and large, government is not for profit. Government is service-driven. It is to provide for those who cannot afford, those who are often left behind, those who need added protections because the system doesn't provide protection for them. So if you apply that principle strictly across the board, only those who can afford service would get it. People who are poor, people who are disabled, people who are elderly, people who are disenfranchised would be left behind. So the general principle that government should be run like a business sounds cute, but it isn't practical. And that was my point of challenging Governor Sununu when suggesting that privatization would be good. He was the only one at the table that felt that way. And I reminded the viewers and my colleagues that, they all talked about how great TSA workers were and that they should never go without pay. But I reminded them that it was the Democrats who advanced a pay raise for our TSA workers, and not one single Republican joined us. They all, in fact, voted no. So it was just a moment of sobriety to remind them you can't just say this stuff and expect that you're not going to be checked.
The thing that strikes me, especially with people who believe that government should be run like a business, I can understand the everyday person believing that. I get it. Once upon a time, I would say the same things. If this was just more like a business, we'd be more efficient and all that stuff. However, we're seeing it in action, right? Aren't we seeing this in action where government is being treated like a business? And the underbelly of that is that the CEO, anytime they feel like, can just start firing people because it's a Tuesday. I mean, isn't that what we're seeing now?
Yeah, and more than just firing people, changing the rules midstream, cutting things that shouldn't be cut because they're looking at profit margins versus the service that they provide to the people of America. Looking at ways to put money in their own pockets or to feather the nest of their friends, and doing whatever they want absent any rule of law, absent any governance. Maybe you can do that in your own business, but we have a constitution for a reason, and that's to make sure that we don't have a president who wants to be a king, as we see happening here, to make sure that our constitution guards against the kind of improprieties that we see happening every day with this administration. The attempted creation of a $1.8 billion slush fund to bail out criminals, to bail out people who tried to throw over our government, to create a fund to give to the January 6th insurrectionists who committed horrendous acts against our country. Adding insult to injury, he's pardoned them for their crimes. Now he wants to enrich them for their crimes. A constitution, when in proper function, should block this stuff. Checks and balances, when in proper function, should stop this stuff. A Supreme Court that is operating independently should stop this stuff. A Senate and House that is being run properly should stop this stuff. But this president boasts that he controls the House, the Senate, and the Supreme Court. That is a complete dismembering of our checks and balances. We've got to get back to a system of governance that protects Americans and the American policies, not one that operates on the whim of one person, in this case, Donald Trump.
Congressman, thank you again so much for being available to us today and also for the work that you do largely. My question is a broader one. I'm wondering if you would talk a little bit, or at least give us some visuals, perhaps, what day-to-day work looks like on Capitol Hill or otherwise, given that in more ways than one, our community needs, and when I say our community, meaning the Black community and others, are facing a supermajority with a lot of the decision making. And so I'm wondering if you can kind of share what the pushback might be from your angle or the angle of the Legislative Black Caucus, especially as people are in some ways still apathetic across the Black community.
Well, Doc, thank you very much for that question. I tell you, we wake up every morning and we stay up late every night fighting. We're outvoted, and we have not allowed that to be an excuse for us. In fact, we've used it to sharpen our pencils, to sharpen our tactics, to look deeper into procedural ways to be competitive and to find ways to block this bad legislation. And considering the odds against us, we've been able to slow down and stop a lot of stuff. We were able to release the Epstein files. We were able to advance issues of funding. We've been able to push back using what I often refer to on this show and everywhere else, our 3 C's, the Congress, the courts, and the community, where we use every tool we have within our toolbox in Congress, procedural moves, amendments, to advance, delay, modify pieces of legislation that's either good for us or bad, to stop those bad pieces and advance those that are good. Then we also, when we feel like we have not gotten the traction we wanted in the Congress, simultaneously, we've been successful in taking this administration to court. At lower courts, we've been successful. Unfortunately, when things make their way to what Trump refers to as his court, the Supreme Court, we have not had as much success because Trump boasts that he owns and controls the Supreme Court. Hence, this actions that we keep seeing coming out of this court. And then, of course, last and equally, if not more important and powerful, is the community. The community doing what it is doing now in a way that we haven't seen done in a long way. And I could not tell you how proud I am of organizations like Power Coalition and ACLU and NAACP and the Legislative Black Caucus and members of the clergy and members of nonprofits and organizations that are stepping up, stepping out, and demonstrating that our voices will not be denied. We are organizing at every level. The Congressional Black Caucus is using the tools that we have to push back against this bad legislation. We try to, where we can, encourage Republicans who are starting to feel the pinch of these poor policies by Donald Trump that are now acknowledging we didn't sign up for this. Tom Massey, who is a member of Congress, is a Republican who had the audacity to join Democrats to come out and fight against some of Trump's policies, unfortunately lost his election the other day. Lauren Boebert, who has stepped out to start challenging Trump on some of his policies. Marjorie Taylor Greene. These are people that I've never agreed with, who policy-wise have always been on the wrong side of history in my estimation. But even they have learned that Trump's policies are so backwards that they can no longer support it. We, as members of Congress, spend every day, every night trying to cultivate relationships to bring more people to the side of justice, more people to the side of fighting for civil liberties. It's not easy, but I will tell you, dollar for dollar, I could not be more proud of my Congressional Black Caucus members who show up every day, ready to fight with intellect, fight with zest and zeal. And they show up with limited tools. In Congress, everything is driven by who's in charge. We can have the best legislation in the world if the ruling party, in this case the Republican Party, led by the Speaker of the House, does not schedule our bills for hearing on the floor. They don't get there. So people say, why don't you guys do this? Why don't you guys do that? Because they don't. They block our bills because they have the votes to do so. We don't allow that to be an inhibiting factor for us. We get up every day and we fight and we outsmart them most days. And today is no different. We will continue to do that. They will be on the House floor arguing and pushing for a War Powers Act that will stop this needless war that will undoubtedly cost American lives and cause the price of gasoline and everyday household goods to continue to rise. We're going to continue to use our voice, and with some grit and hard work and prayers, hopefully we'll get a Republican or two to join us. We noticed in the U.S. Senate just yesterday, an advancement of the War Powers Act finally got greenlit to move a little bit. That's because Senator Bill Cassidy has now found his voice and standing with Democrats and other Republicans to demonstrate when we stand together as Republicans and Democrats, we can work to restore our democracy and fight against the tyranny that we see coming from this Trump administration.
Congressman, I know we have a little bit. I know we usually try to take a call, but we probably going to be up on time. But I did want you to be able to give us an update on the Calais case. What do we have?
Well, today at 9 o'clock, in just a little while, the House Governmental Affairs Committee in Baton Rouge will be hearing the SB 121 bill before the committee. I'm encouraging as many people as possible to get to Baton Rouge to let your voices be heard. As you know, a couple of Fridays ago, myself, Congressman Cleo Fields, former Congressman Bill Jefferson, former Congressman Cedric Richmond, all appeared in committee in a historic show of unity to express our support for 407, Senate Bill 407, which would in fact create 2 minority-majority districts. I hold firm in that position that SB, Senate Bill 407, is the proper instrument to create 2 minority-majority districts. Since the Supreme Court has disallowed, in its ruling in Louisiana v. Calais, has disallowed our ability to speak race, there's multiple ways to address this without mentioning race, which I think is ridiculous, that you can gerrymander for political gain, but you make it next to impossible through the single word, intent. To prove intent that you've been discriminated against when your communities of interest have been split up, when your compactness has been taken away, when communities of interest where African Americans or any other concentrated community has been split up for political gain. How do you not call that discrimination? But even with those barriers that they create, SB 407 would supersede those issues and create 2 seats where African Americans would have the right and opportunity to elect people of their choosing. That bill has failed, and SB 121 will be before committee today, and I'm encouraging our colleagues and members to resurrect SB 407, to amend it into SB 121, which would once again restore two seats where African Americans will have an opportunity to elect the person of their choice. This committee meeting will be happening today at 9 a.m. at the state capitol in Baton Rouge, and should it pass, I suspect testimony will go for a very long time. Should it pass, it will then advance to the House floor, where we'll have another debate. And depending on what happens there, it can potentially go to the governor's desk for signing. The significant point that I want to make to our listeners is we should not allow ourselves to be hoodwinked into thinking that we only deserve 1. We deserve 2. The demographics of Louisiana is very clear. We represent roughly a third of the state. There's 6 members of Congress. It's pretty easy math. 1/3 of 6 is 2. Any way you slice that, other than Donald Trump's effort to say, I want to control the narrative of what happens in Congress by any means necessary, even if that means cheating. And when I say cheating, we have every 10 years we do reapportionment. Reapportionment is done in concert with the Census Bureau, with the census taking, rather. And that census taking takes into account the ebbs and flows of demographic changes. That's how it should happen. You do it in concert with a census so you know what changes have happened to make sure that our congressional districts are evenly divided, that each district has roughly 780, 800,000 or so votes, whatever the numbers dictate, that they're divided evenly by number, by district. To do a mid-decade reapportionment is nothing more than looking at the ability that some red states have to call these special sessions and to manipulate the system to get the outcome that you want instead of managing the system to get the outcome that's actually happened. It's tantamount to changing the rules in the middle of a game.
Congressman, we do have a caller this morning. We got Reverend Calhoun on the line this morning. Let's go ahead and take his call. Good morning, Reverend Calhoun. What you got? You're on with Congressman Troy Carter.
Good morning. I'm looking at the monies that he's spending, the $1.8 billion that the Justice Department is coming up with. And yet I'm listening that every state seems to be in some type of financial situation. Where is the money coming from? How is it that he got trillions of dollars to give away, but none of these monies are coming back into the states or to the selected places that he wants them to go? If Congress controls the money, where is the stop on him? And I'll hang up and listen.
All right. Thank you, Reverend Calhoun.
You put your finger right on it. This has been the least fiscally responsible president in the history of our country. This president doesn't care about a national debt. He doesn't care about spending us into generations and generations of debt. For him, it's monopoly money. He prints it, he spends it. He doesn't care about what this does to our credibility or our fiscal health. It's all about him getting and doing what he wants. And to ask the question, where are the barriers to stop it? The checks and balances that are so battered and so beaten and so worn that they no longer are checking balances because this president has masterfully hypnotized the Republican Party and the Supreme Court to give him a blank check to do whatever he wants. And we wake up every day as Democrats finding ways to create roadblocks, to slow it down, to bring attention to the public. That's why I spend so much time with WBOK and other outlets, social media, the press, town hall meetings, to demonstrate and to educate our people on what's happening and to emphasize the only way we stop this, is to organize and to vote. We have got to get out and vote. The only way we stop the atrocities of what we're seeing is to stop it and take the power away, restore democracy, restore checks and balances, restore rule of law, restore sanity to what has become an insane operation coming out of the White House.
Congressman Carter, we're going to take a real quick break, and then we'll come back and let you wrap up. Don Meddy Francis in for Will Sutton. Dr. Andrea Boyles is joining us, and we're on with Congressman Troy Carter on the Good Morning Show. And WBOK, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
New Orleans, are you ready for a voice that says what you're thinking? Who that, you might ask? Arrington Gavin. That's right, I'm your guy, host of the Arrington Gavin Show, giving you so much filled with bold opinions, real conversations, and zero sugarcoating. We're going to be diving into the issues that matter, politics, pop culture, and all the above, unfiltered and unafraid. Catch the Arrington Gavin Show weeknights from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., Monday through Fridays, right here on WBOK, what New Orleans is talking about.
This is The Law and Your Legacy. I'm attorney Pete Hamilton.
I'm attorney Ryan Hamilton. Losing a loved one is tough enough. Do you really want your family dealing with court battles and paperwork on top of it?
Whether you choose a will or a trust,
Think ahead. Take care of your family. Let them focus on healing instead of headaches. This is not legal advice. That's just a tip brought to you by Liberty Bank and Trust. For more information, go to libertybank.net or contact us at 504-915-5016.
Transform your bathroom with the beautiful quality of Bath Planet. As a trusted leader in bathroom renovation, Bath Planet has earned the Good Housekeeping seal, a symbol of quality and consumer confidence for over 100 years. Get half off installation or 18 months with no interest and no payments. Whether it's tub replacement, a shower replacement, or a tub-to-shower conversion, Bath Planet makes your custom bath fast, easy, and affordable. Here's how it works. 1. Call to schedule your free, no-obligation consultation. 2. Our design experts come to you with real samples to customize your dream bath. 3. Our certified installers complete the transformation in as little as 1 day. And right now, for a limited time, you can upgrade your bathroom for 50% off installation or choose 18 months with no interest and no payments. But you need to call now. This special offer is only available by calling 800-981-8177. That's 800-981-8177. Call 800-981-8177 right now before the offer ends.
Greetings and salutations. I am Edward B. Coulon Smith, chairman of the board of the New Orleans Regional Black Chamber of Commerce. We'd like to invite you to tune in every Wednesday at 12 noon on WBOK to listen in on Black to Business and be a part of the movement that's going on. Thank you.
Good morning, wake up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
And welcome back to the Good Morning Show. Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton. Dr. Andrea Boyles is joining us, and we are on this morning with Congressman Troy Carter. Congressman Carter, as we wrap up this morning, I wanted to find out, because I think that the Reverend Calhoun, of course, brought up some great points, and Dr. Boyles asked earlier about protecting the interests, especially of the Black community. So I'm wondering, what is next? What's next for the Congressional Black Caucus? What's next for the Democrats to try to balance all of these things out? What is next? Because one question that did pop up on Facebook that I would love for you to try to quickly address is, Alicia Plummer asked this, but how is the president able to grab monies supposedly held by Congress? So I know I gave you a couple of things right there, but take whichever one you like, however you want to take it.
I'll take the last one, then I'll come back to the other ones, because it's a question that Alicia is correct to ask. How does he take this money even though Congress is in charge of the purse? Because he controls Congress. He controls the Republican Party. Democrats fight him every single day, but we're outvoted. And that's why we have to elect more like-minded Democrats to Congress so we can block this. Yes, the Constitution is very clear. Congress has the exclusive responsibility of the power of the purse, of the budget. But when you have a Republican Party that's complicit, when you have a Republican Party who basically opens the checkbook and gives him whatever he wants, he's then able to raid the Treasury and to continue to spend money into the future, thus deepening the debt grave of what our deficit looks like and what our indebtedness continues to be. That's why the dollar continues to weaken. That's why inflation is where it is, because the value of the dollar doesn't mean as much because we have outweighed it with our excessive spending. It's very simple. That's why we have checks and balances. But checks and balances are broken because the stop of the checks and balances are when the leaders of the Republican Party say, Mr. President, you can do whatever you want. And when the Supreme Court sanctions and says, yes, you can do whatever you want, then the system is broken. The framers of the Constitution, who were very thoughtful in creating a document 240 years ago, now are would be rolling over in their graves, rather, thinking, wow, we thought of everything, but we didn't think of Donald Trump.
I mean, or did they think of? I mean, that's why we got the Constitution, right? That's why we got the Declaration of Independence.
But we thought we had tightened every bet. We thought we had belts, suspenders, and a trap net. We didn't figure that they'd have a Houdini president who knew how to get out of all of it. And unfortunately, that's what we're looking at. And so what we have to do, I initiated a committee called Securing Our Constitution and Tightening Up what we knew as norms, and to now memorialize them in law. Because things like the emolument clause that says the president can't take gifts, he's taking a plane. Hell, he takes gold. He takes all sorts of stuff. You know, the nepotism rule, he's ignored it. All of these things that were just constitutional norms that every president since the beginning of time honored, this president has tested them and unfortunately has been able to use the Supreme Court to get away with things that we have identified in the past as sacrosanct, and now he does it. So we have to now, when we're back in control, when we have people that appreciate the Constitution, we have to now go in and memorialize and codify law that is not gray, that's very clear, that can meet constitutional muster, that will prevent any other president from ever amassing the kind of the kind of power that this president has amassed, to use more like a monarch or a king than that of a president that's ruled by checks and balances, one person, one vote. The next step is, what do we do? The next question, I think, was, what do we do? We continue to organize.
Yeah.
We continue to vote, because that is, at the end of the day, the antidote for this poison.
Any parting words that you have that we need to know about?
Yes, I would encourage everyone who's available. You have about an hour to get to Baton Rouge before the committee hearing starts. Drive safely, but if you can get there, bring a few friends. Carpool if you can. Go to the state capitol. Let your voices be heard. Even if you don't speak, show up. Show up peacefully. Don't let them draw us off sides. You don't want to go there and get into any violent squabbles. You want to do it peacefully, but you want to go express yourself. I regret that I cannot physically be there because we're in Washington voting on critical issues that are equally as important. But my voice will be heard through the many of you who will go and say SB 407 that allows for 2 minority-majority districts should be the order of the day. And I think there's strength in numbers. Our voices are resonated when we show up and express ourselves and make it very clear that we will not be disallowed. We will not be denied. We will not be blocked from the process. Please go if you can. Use your social media. Chime in. Join the chorus of the incredible leaders and activists and advocates who are, as we speak, on their way to Baton Rouge, those who got there early to get seats, those who stayed there last night to make sure their voices were heard. God bless you. God's blessings be with you. Be strong, be powerful, be faithful, and let's keep speaking up.
Thank you so much, Congressman Troy Carter. Thank you for joining us, as always. And you have a good day out there in D.C., okay?
God bless you. God bless you both. God bless WBOK.
You got it.
Thank you.
We're going to be back in just a little bit because we have a lot more conversation with Dr. Boyles, actually. I'm Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton on WBOK. What New Orleans is talking about all day long.
WBOK New Orleans, home of the Good Morning Show, 7 to 9 a.m. weekdays.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Black former state representative Charles Booker will win the Democratic Party's primary in Kentucky.
I'm humbled. I'm honored. I'm proud to stand for Kentucky. All of us, we need real change, and I just thank God I get to do my part.
On the Republican side, Trump-backed candidate Andy Barr is projected to win. The contest will fill the position being vacated by longtime Senator Mitch McConnell. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee says he will not stop the execution of Black inmate Tony Carruthers, convicted in a 1994 triple murder. His attorneys argue key evidence remains untested, while supporters push for clemency. The execution is scheduled for today. And authorities have released the cause of death for Florida rapper Lil Papa. Officials say the 25-year-old died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound earlier this year in Georgia. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Good morning. Wake up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
And welcome back to the Good Morning Show. Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton. Dr. Andrea Boyles is joining us, Associate Professor of Sociology and Africana Studies at Tulane. And good morning to all the good folks who are joining us on Facebook, our community on Facebook. They're not a community, they're a community. We got Fern Ware, thank you so much for joining us. Jacqueline Wilmore, thank you as always. Charles Ferguson, appreciate you. Professor Martinez, she said about our conversation at the beginning of the show, so grateful that we're having a high-level conversation. So that's meant for you, by the way, Dr. Boyles.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And we're actually going to get back to that. Dolores Montgomery, thank you for joining us. Alicia Plummer, as always. Good morning. Gary Ballier Jr., thank you for joining us as always. And thank you so much, especially for the folks who are joining us as well on YouTube. So we have a few people who are hanging out there. So by all means, hang out with us on YouTube. And so I wanted to come back, Dr. Boyles. At the beginning, you mentioned that a lot of your work is looking at collective action. There was a lot you said. I mean, collective action was part of it, but then the other thing is moving everyone forward whenever the Black community gets moved forward. We've heard people say this, and I don't think that sentiment gets enough traction. I think people, when they hear it, they hear, oh, yeah, when we do better, everybody does better. But I don't think everybody really understands the deeper meaning there and I don't think people understand the why. So from your standpoint, when we say that when the Black community does well, everybody does well, what does that mean and why?
So that's a loaded question, actually. And
I'm really good at loaded questions,
Yes. But, I can go all the way back to the beginning of human existence.
Okay.
We argue that, from a sociological perspective and perhaps an anthropological one even, that the oldest human species was found in Africa, right? And so we think about things and humanity at large as emerging out of Africa. And so we can start there and have a conversation like, speaking from the origin, like everybody, there's this interconnectedness in which people fail to understand. This idea, the very idea of race in and of itself, is a European constructed paradigm. It is not about biology per se. Racial categories in and of themselves became crucial and crucially created during the transatlantic slave trade. And so there's so much in between there, but I just want to start there. This idea, one, and there are many groups that pride themselves in protecting or preserving this quote unquote pure race. There's no such thing as a pure race.
Right.
There is no scientific place where we can determine where whiteness begins and blackness ends, or where blackness begins and whiteness ends. But we can have a conversation about human existence emerging out of Africa. And specifically us Black folks, especially being many of us descendants of that diaspora.
So this goes into the African notion of Ubuntu. I am because you are, and therefore because you are, I am.
Yes.
I mean, and it makes sense to me. It makes perfect sense to me. I do see race as a man-made construct.
It is a social construct.
Yeah,
yes.
a social construct. So it seems to me that really what it is that when the least of us can prosper, everybody prospers.
Yes. But let's be clear, the least of us is not the least of us inherently. So when we talk about the least of us in terms of Black people, I want to say that that is not us, the least of us, because we are by birth or by virtue of existing or somehow, automatically or naturally. Those are buzzwords, right? That people use naturally or inherently or genetically fall, and therefore minority people, diminished, lesser than, subhuman property type. And I'm using those words deliberately because those are historic, in the sense that we were identified as property. We were leveraged as property.
And
right?
on the other side of that is the so-called great man theory of leadership that says you have to have certain traits in order to be a great leader.
Yes.
Or in order to be a leader, period.
Yes, which is all pseudoscience.
Right.
It is skewed, false, fictional, illegitimate science. And so I say that to say that when we talk about the least of us, we're talking about that systemically, right? The idea that, we have as Black people, descendants of the diaspora, the African diaspora, been minoritized. We're not just minority people. I teach we are minoritized. That helps us remember that there are systems, there are deliberate decisions and mechanisms that have been at play for centuries that have led to us being, quote unquote, marginalized, not because we are inherently that, but because we've become susceptible to the decisions of that through the transatlantic slave trade. So even when we talk about race being, a social construct, I want to be clear in this idea, right? Race is an idea. The problem is that it is an idea that was created and has some dire consequences for Black people, dire consequences that even translate to deadly meaning deadly consequences, can determine life and death for Black people, that have taken on social definition, daily definitions, with a lot of ramifications for Black people. But also, to be clear, it is by and large, when we start talking about so what does it mean to move Black people forward and that kind of thing, and everybody else then moving forward? It's also about understanding that in that constructing, right, Black people are largely identified, as are other people, as raced people. And so this is me, again, speaking sociologically. But what we also know to be true as a trend is that white people are least likely to see themselves as race people. They see everybody else as race people. Yeah. And white people or whiteness tends to not be idealized as raced. And so in that way, it's like everybody else. But no, the idea really, again, goes back to, and we can have, again, this is such a broad thing, y'all. So I don't mean to run you from one extreme to another. I'm just trying to make it make sense in the short amount of time that we have. The reality of it is that we also, through transatlantic enslavement and trafficking, or have been the crux of how this nation, and not only this nation, but economically and otherwise, we are the reasons for the existence and the economic stability or otherwise of the Western Hemisphere. And in fact, I would go further and say not just the Western Hemisphere, but the transatlantic slave trade sets precedence economically and otherwise for the entire globe, in fact. And so that has been not just during the time of the trade in and of itself, that has been ongoing. And so it is in that space that, again, when when the Black community is moved or advanced, or at least there are no barriers, because I want to be clear, we are not necessarily asking to be, to progress. We are the progress. We have been the progress, right? We have been the progress, so much so until that is inherently, and when I say inherently to the way the country in and of itself has been structured, the reason why we were the designated folks chosen to be the labor, to be the laborers for plantations. We have built, in many respects, we hear that all the time, we built this country. And so it went, and so that is where I'm coming from when I say we are the progress. And we can track historically the ways in which we have been, the keepers of humanity, the keepers, the forebearers of and predecessors and the forerunners for maintaining humanity, in the sense that a lot of our movements even have not just been about our community. They emerge out of our community. Certainly, they have championed many of the issues that are most pertinent to us. But a lot of our movements have been certainly encompassing and inclusive of everybody in many respects. I think a lot of times that's why our people, at least based on the responses that I get, a lot of times why our people feel some type of way, because it has always been Black folks and Black bodies on the front line of advancing, humanity in more ways than one, not just for our own community, but we have always been a people that have worked in ways that have created spaces and places and opportunities to advance that for all people. And so and what we have received historically has been quite the contrary. It's been the opposite. We have been inclusive as other people have been quite exclusive.
We're going to go to break, but that reminds me of a hill that I am dying on. And that is whenever people talk about what was the moment of a generation. And when people talk about Generation X and they say, okay, what was the moment that really formed Generation X? People go back to Watergate and all this stuff. And I said, no, it's the birth of hip hop. The birth of hip hop is what formed Generation X, because the birth of hip hop actually has moved society a lot. And it's been mostly Black folks behind it. And I notice that every single time I say that in the presence of white people, they go, well, I don't know. And I'm going, oh, I know. I know, because I was 10 years old in 1980. I was 12 years old in 1982. I remember by the 90s, everybody wanted a piece of hip hop. And hip hop helped build so many more markets. And we have barely profited from any of those markets, although we were the ones behind it.
But hip hop in its infancy emerges, right? Its origin is rooted in socio-political dynamics in the Black community. So there's a whole thing, right, that we can have certainly a conversation about hip hop. And also it's important to note that is where it emerged from, out of socio-political circumstances in the Black community, because otherwise people will just attribute it to clothes. Or people or jewelry. How many gold ropes you got around your neck? I know, whatever, right? Twerking and all that kind of stuff. And so, no, we want to be clear. Like, people were using bars and lyrics to speak to the dynamics on the block, right? And what that looks like. Yeah. So
and it was the genius of saying, I didn't have enough money for instruments, but I had this turntable.
Yes.
So I used this turntable. I repurposed all of the stuff that I heard on the turntable and all the stuff I heard on these records. I repurposed that and turned it into a completely different form of music, a completely new genre of music. But I do have a question for you. I'm going to load this question up like a baked potato. So, my question is this, and you are more than free to get in on the conversation. New Orleans, 504-582-9422, 504-582-9422. Get ready for this one, Doc.
Ooh.
Since, as we say, a rising tide lifts all ships, is it the government's responsibility to be the rising tide? Don't answer just yet. Put a pin in it.
Okay.
We're gonna take a break right now, but if you'd like to get in on the conversation, 504-582-9422. She's hating me right now. She's calling me all kinds of names. She's calling me all kinds of names.
I'm up for it. Hey, let's go. Let's do it.
504-582-9422. 504-582-9422. If you want to get in on the conversation, Dr. Andrea Boyles is joining us this morning on the Good Morning Show. I'm Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton on WBOK, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
This is your news update for WBOK from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Kubel, and here are today's headlines for you. Happening today, a controversial proposal for a new congressional map is up for debate. Senate Bill 121 will go before the Louisiana House and Governmental Affairs Committee. The proposed map would include only one majority black district. The full Senate approved it after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the current map with 2 majority black districts. New Orleans leaders are set to announce plans for infrastructure improvements across the city. The plan is to assess, to repair, and to modernize aging traffic signals to improve public safety, reduce outages, and help traffic flow. A news conference is set for 9:30 this morning. And sports fans, get your passports ready because it is not just the Saints going international this season, but the Pelicans as well. The team announcing they will play 2 regular season games internationally for the first time in franchise history. The Pels will take on the San Antonio Spurs in Paris on January 14th and again in Manchester on January 17th. And that is a look for you at today's headlines. I'm Elizabeth Kubel for WBOK. Have a great day, everyone.
That's right. It's party time each and every Sunday night at 7 p.m. on WBOK. It's the Throwback Throwdown with DJ Wick as he brings you the best in old school from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and the early 2Ks. Plus, the party goes to another level at 9 p.m. with the Throwback Throwdown Party Mix to round out the night. It's the Throwback Throwdown Sunday nights at 7 p.m. on WBOK and on the World Wide Web at WBOK1230.com.
Good morning, wake up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
Show. Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton. Joining us, Dr. Andrea Boyles. She is the co-pilot today. The willing participant.
I am.
And I have to say, I am really, really enjoying this conversation. So
likewise,
I do not partake, but past the leafy green vegetable, that's some people's morning medicine. When we take a look at what we were talking about as far as we talk about the least of us, and you gave such a great explanation about a great explanation of what happens when Black people are empowered. And now we're having this big discussion about government's role. And it's interesting. I want to put this in here. It's interesting. On my weekly show, I talked about the manosphere, and I talked about all the content that they're putting out, and a lot of them are parroting what they're hearing from the far right. Then it's not their dialogue. They don't have a mind of their own. These manosphere jokers, these bro culture jokers who have these podcasts and all this stuff. And when I hear them parrot stuff like, well, the government is bad because it's just enabling people to be lazy, I'm going, you don't believe that because you don't understand and you don't know. And you clearly don't understand that government does have a responsibility to its people. So to rehash that question that I asked right before the break, a rising tide lifts all ships. That seems to be what we're looking at right now when you say when we have one segment of people, the least of us, and let's take race or let's take ethnicity out of it. Let's say it's not Black people. Let's say it's everybody with green hair, and they are the least of us. When people with green hair, when they are uplifted, everybody's uplifted. And if a rising tide lifts all ships, does a government have a responsibility to be the rising tide? What do you think?
So I'm going to push back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And in some respect, I'm going to try my best to have a general conversation, but it's going to be difficult to take race out of it.
Okay.
Only to the degree, because I want to be
I'll
clear.
pass it back to you.
Because people, I want to be clear. People say that, like, I don't see color. I don't. Let's act like, right, that, you know, if there's a Martian someplace, there's a green person right?
Yeah.
And what people sometimes, not knowingly, I'm going to just default to not knowingly, some people do that without understanding that in and of itself is racism.
Okay.
It is this colorblind approach.
Yeah.
And they often leverage it by using Martin Luther King's speech incorrectly, his language, his words, the segment where he talks about, you know, he having a dream that his children will be judged, you know, by the content of their character and not the color of their skin or what have you. People manipulate that language, right? And try to imply, like, see, Dr. King said, let's not, you know, see color. That's not what he said. That's not what he said, which, by the way, you all, for those who may not know, Dr. King's first degree was in sociology.
It was, yeah.
His very first degree. So when we talk about Black sociology, like we did earlier, I want to also throw that out there, that Dr. King is a sociologist. That was his first degree. I want to also mention, while we're on it, that Michelle Obama's first degree is sociology. So in a minor in African studies, African American studies. So I want to, you know, just kind of again give the precedence, right? Like the way in which we kind of move and operate under that discipline.
No, I will gladly take that lick. Bad Eddie. Okay.
No.
Ahead.
So anyway, all right. So another thing I want to say, I was thinking about Congressman Carter's comments and things, and between the comments about the Constitution and your question about, you know, the role of the government. And the first thing comes to my mind, or at least one of the things, is we the people. We the people. And the government should reflect we the people. And so I want to start in that space. I also want to start with the notion that the Constitution, right? Like, there's a lot of weight placed on the Constitution, when the reality of it is that the Constitution and the ways in which, and I'm saying this as a critical theorist, the ways in which the Constitution may or may not be violated or being used to leverage. There was a lot of reference to the presidency, right? And what's happening or not happening in terms of the Constitution. That didn't begin today. The Constitution has been violated in more ways than one on a regular. That happens every day, regardless of a presidency. Every day. There are people in our society. Now, we can have that conversation across race, but certainly disproportionately in the Black community, that are facing and having to contend with violation of constitutional rights regularly. And so I want to make sure that we put that in perspective, right? And so the idea that now that may be happening at the congressional level is not a one-off. It is par for the course.
It's just that this administration is saying the quiet part out loud.
It is what people have arguably, particularly in the Black community, been calling attention to for a long time. And the long time attention has been about, you know, America and what that means, and the rights, and there being a dual kind of existence. The duality of it is, you know, that there has been not a level playing field, that these rules are only as strong as the implementers of them or the interpreters of them, right? And so all these things, I also situate all these things historically, right? So let's think about when the Constitution was written. What was happening? What did this nation look like, right? What were the dynamics that this we hear a lot of reference across the aisle on both sides, right? About the framers. We hear that referenced in the Supreme Court, the framers of the Constitution. But who were the framers? And what were their perspectives, racially and otherwise? Like, those things matter, right? They don't just emerge out of nowhere. We have to think about what the agendas were, racially and otherwise. That helps us to understand why we face some of the things we face today. And so I said all of that to say this. When you talk about government, I argue even from the angle of community disorder that I talked about with my book earlier. I'm not talking about community disorder. I flipped that paradigm. When we hear community disorder, more often than not, it has been leveraged as in the Black community being the people of disorder, disorderly people. Black people being disorderly people, black people engaging in disorderly actions and that kind of thing. I flipped that on his head. My argument is that disorder begins in the government.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It begins in the government,
Yeah.
and it trickles down and leaves communities disproportionately reeling and having to contend with disorder, not because they are the perpetuators of it, but because they are on the receiving end of it. And so when we talk about the government, I am, again, thinking in terms of disorder trickling down and the government needing to be a reflection of we, the people. If the government in and of itself is out of order and how it conducts business, how it thinks about laws in and of itself, or leverages them, leverages policies and those kinds of things, leverages, practices and the like. If those things are disorderly, then how can you then, and so this is a rhetorical question, how can we then expect that ship to lead everybody forward? There's a reciprocal relationship. We have to be conscious about who's sent, right, to represent us in the government, because again, it should be we the people. So is it reflective of we the people that is operating? These are actors that make up, these are individual actors that make up these various institutions, right? These are also individual actors that go in with their own sets of ideas, thoughts about race and economics and all these different things, and then use those ideas to frame policy and legislation, or what have you, the same difference, and then leverage it as practice or not. So who are we sending? Like, how do we decide who we, the people, are in the government? And then in return, what is the expectation of those that are supposed to be we, the people in the government, in terms of leveraging what's right or what's most beneficial to the people? It's a convoluted kind of, and I know y'all, please forgive me. I promise I'm not trying to because I know that it gets to a point where it's like, what? Then you can get lost in this thing.
No, but
I'm really trying not to be too wordy, y'all. I'm trying to put this out there where it makes sense.
You're fine, because Cliff Dugard said preach.
Okay.
And you're getting a lot of microphone emojis.
Okay.
But apparently from one of your sorors. So yeah.
But because it can get wordy, and I know we can get lost in the rhetoric, and I really try hard to not be that person. But I think but I'm a person that operate at the origin. My work is rooted in cause and effect. And a lot of times we're having conversations about what's happening today. And the reality of it is we can have a conversation about what's happening today, but it's hard to have that without thinking about and factoring in context from yesterday. And the reality of it is that I can have a broader conversation and start here and say, first and foremost, the government had never been created and situated for us.
And therein lies a fascinating, thought, because that was the thing I was going to bring up, and we have to go to break. And T-Bone, we got you. We're going to get to you right after the break. But I want to leave with this before we go to break, that a few weeks ago, Reverend Dr. Torrance Sanders was sitting with us. And one of the things he said is, when it comes to the people who you put in representation of your community, it's best to have somebody who who has already been in the community and you've seen them doing the work already. That way you can trust them. That's your best chance of trust. And that's probably your best chance of having a functional rather than a dysfunctional government.
Or being pandered to, right?
Yeah.
We know, we have folks like, Zora Neale Hurston, who reminds us that all folks, or, all skin folks are not kin folks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And which is what I talk about with social ties, the ways in which we kind of think about these networks in our community. But even when I say that the government was not created for us, or what have you, So I am speaking from a place of origin. I am speaking in historical context, right? People oftentimes, it's not me just throwing something out there for the sake of being provocative. The reality of it is that enslavement was an institution that was supposed to be forever.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be, right? As these documents are being leveraged, right? It was supposed to be that Black people, African descendant people, were to forever be enslaved.
Yeah. And on
We
that
can
note,
start there. Yeah.
and let's get to a commercial break really quickly. T-Bone, we're going to come to you right out of the break. I'm Eddie Francis. In for Will Sutton, Dr. Andrea Boyles is joining us on the Good Morning Show on WBOK. New Orleans is talking about all day long.
This is your news update for WBOK from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
Partly to mostly cloudy skies for today, but the main thing you will need to dodge is the rain. We are talking about more scattered showers throughout the morning and more so into the afternoon and the evening. Not everyone will see this at the same time. Highs will make it into the mid-80s for us, and then more rain chances are expected as we head into Friday on into the weekend. Those chances really ramping up each afternoon. From the WDSU First Warning Weather Center, I'm Raven Richard.
On Auto Trends with JeffCars.com, here's a snippet of some of what we cover. GPS pioneer Gladys West.
We worked long hours computing trajectory orbits and satellite orbits, trying to get the data and everything correct enough.
Auto analyst Mark Bland.
14 new vehicle deals that happen in this country out of every 100 that women don't have a fingerprint on.
To tune in, check out Auto Trends with JeffCars.com. Saturdays at 4 p.m. on WBOK, what New Orleans is talking about.
Life has a way of shifting priorities, changing needs, and pivoting plans. Home Bank is there for all of them. Their bankers partner with you for every step along the way, from understanding your needs to celebrating your success. Home Bank is invested in the vibrant spirit of our community and in you. So partner with them. Stop on by any banking center in the greater New Orleans area or visit home24bank.com to get started today. Good for business, good for life. Home Bank, a member of the FDIC.
You've got responsibilities, but that doesn't mean your dreams are on hold. At Southern University at New Orleans, our evening and weekend college is designed with your life in mind. Finish your degree, start a new one, on your time, your degree, your schedule. No excuses, just opportunity. Visit suno.edu and make your next move today.
City Park is where to go when you don't know where to go. Turn towards the city center and start walking. Before long, you'll end up where you belong, at the heart of the city, New Orleans City Park. Stroll along the reeded marsh, wander through the sculpture garden, rest and recharge beneath ancient oak trees. This is where your spirit goes to grow. It's in our nature to yearn for nature. NewOrleansCityPark.org, heart of the city.
Good morning, wake up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton. Dr. Andrea Boyles is joining us this morning. And I was just telling our fair that I love this conversation. It is a good, fast-moving substance. The conversation is very rich, full of substance. This is why I like talking to, and I'm not, I swear, y'all, I'm not trying to be bougie when I say this. But this is why I like talking about highly educated Black folks, because when the lights come on for us, and for especially for folks like you, Dr. Boyles, who you're deep into your research, you know it like the back of your hand, you live it, because you're part of your research. You're an ethnographer. Right?
I'm an ethnographer.
So I mean,
yes.
you live it. You find ways to live it. You are in it all the time.
Yes.
And there are a lot of Black folks who, when we hear the conversations, we enjoy having somebody in the room who helps that light bulb go off. We love it.
Yes.
We love it. I always say this. Critical race theory was not a problem until it got to social media and Ray the mechanic read it and went, wait a minute, is this why my neighborhood is the way it is? That's when critical race theory became a problem for people. As long as it was locked up in the academy and people were having panel discussions about it, it wasn't a problem.
Sure.
But access, people getting more access to it, that's where the real problem is. All right, we've had T-Bone waiting a long time. T-Bone, thanks for being so patient, man. How you doing this morning?
All right, good morning to y'all.
Good morning.
I'm going to stop calling. I go far back with you, Mr. Eddie. You used to be fast, Eddie. I'm going to call you not so fast because you can take it so long.
Oh, bro, look, let me tell you, you have not seen me run lately, so I'm definitely slow, Eddie, these days.
Just trying to lighten it up, brother.
Thank you, man.
Don't take no pics with it. Just lightening it up because, trust me, this is heavy.
You know me, man. I love a good laugh, but yeah, go with it.
So, doctor, since you are scholarly in this area, let's stay on the Constitution. Can we talk about the 13th, the 14th Amendment? Can we talk about the provision to stop this man from running for a third term? Because here's the thing. Right now, he's going unchecked. He's going unstopped. And you have three branches of government that are all leaning in his direction, which is what was never meant to be. And I'm so agitated with the other side who wants to be that antithesis, that hero, so to speak, to stop him, but they're not doing enough. I don't know what they've got to get together in their heads. And every time I ask this question of a Democrat, they try to come up with a lot of rhetoric. I don't want to hear rhetoric. I want to hear what you're going to do. And here's my ultimate question. What are you doing to stop him from being able to run for a third term? And don't tell me he can't, because he's run roughshod over everything. He's run roughshod over the Constitution. He's run roughshod over the other branches of government. He's run roughshod over the voting systems. He's run roughshod over every single thing that should be stopping him. And I'm fearing that all this stuff he's doing is so that he can go back a third time and declare himself king or emperor or whatever the hell it is he's thinking on his bulletin board he can become, so that he don't leave that office. Can y'all please speak on that? Please.
Yeah, you got it, T-Bone. And I will create a little bridge between T-Bone's questioning and your response, Doc, with this, going back to what Representative Carter said about the reason he's able to run roughshod is he owns the Congress. There are congressmen and congresspeople who are more than willing to bend the knee right now for whatever personal gain it is, because to me it's all self-centered leadership. How do you connect the dots from a sociological perspective?
So a couple things, excuse me, y'all. A couple things. One, I heard the gentleman mention the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments. I want to emphasize in our discussion of Constitution and otherwise that they are amendments. I don't think we really hone in on that sometimes. Amendments. That means there had to be some modifications and otherwise for us to have them. But even in that, the 13th in and of itself makes for a whole conversation, because that's about compelling Black folks back to the fields, really, is where that emerges from. So if we're thinking about a socio-historical perspective, which I'm always going to be speaking from, it was an answer in many respects to the Emancipation Proclamation, which in and of itself, we can have a conversation about, how these policies get leveraged and otherwise, and the duality, right? Like how they don't always accomplish whatever it is that they are set out to or supposed to, because we know that is in and of itself the reason why we have Juneteenth. Yeah. Texas, folks were not walking off of plantations at the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. We know it took a whole other 2 or so years for folks to be, freed at least to leave the plantation in Texas and otherwise. And so too is true now. I think that there's a through line and understanding in, these different carve outs is what I'm really trying to call attention to. And the various ways in which these policies and things like that, whether we're thinking about the 13th Amendment, 14th, 15th, and otherwise 14th and 15th, which, amendments we start to think about, they had to be long fought and won, essentially, that it also includes voting rights and those kinds of things, but the point that I'm making is that, again, when we think about the government in and of itself, when we think about all these documents and things like that, for me, I'm always starting at the beginning. And at the beginning, it had nothing to do with the good, the good interest or the best interest, so to speak, of Black people. Mm-hmm. It had nothing to do with that. And there's a through line that I continue to draw, that we continue to see the manifestations of what its intent had been. Now, on a good day, and I will say that loosely, I'm often using an analogy about a house. We can think about a house and the ways in which the house, or even if we don't own a home, whatever the case might be, a room, an apartment, whatever. Every so often, there's some updating that happens. It doesn't matter if there's some new paint added, if somebody's decided that the carpet has aged, or that the roof needs new shingles, whatever the case might be, there's always something happening. Again, this is me using an analogy. There's always something happening with the spaces in which we occupy where it becomes a bit dated, right? And so we start to make changes to bring it current. Is that correct? What we don't and can't change is the foundation. I want us to think about that in terms of this country. There are all sorts of carve-outs and manipulating of or editing and revising of policies and, or legislation, however we might want to think about it, approaches in terms of the Constitution, new ways, new, framing, or ways we want to, that they get reinterpreted or not interpreted at all, however the case might be. There are changes that may have happened and continue to happen that brings about this supposed update. And the updates look different depending on what side of the aisle you on, right? But so people are arguing either way. This is an update. This is a revision. This is a new thing, right? At the end of the day, whatever the case might be, what doesn't get changed one way or the other with all these variations is the foundation. And the foundation of this place is rooted in anti-Blackness and has been built and emerges out of enslavement. And so I start there every time. And we continue to hear and see semblances of that. It's the same way if someone rehabbed their home or rehabbed a new place. There's always going to be reminders about that place. Since the foundation can't change, there's always reminders that it's an old place. It's an aged place, that there were some things happening and taking place before the roof got, or the house was remodeled, or the building was rehabbed in some particular way. We might hear creaks in the floorboard. There might be creaks in the way that the door closes. Maybe the windows get stuck from time to time, because that helps us to know that the foundation is shifted in some way. The point that I'm making is that happens in the government. That happens in our structures and institutions that are attached to the government. They are aged. They emerge out of a foundation. And so these different things that we see happening that creates further conflict are not new. Mm-hmm. They're reminders of the foundation. rollbacks in voting. That's a creak in the floorboard. The challenge is about we can, and I'm hoping that this is, connecting. I'm trying to kind of use some everyday ways in which we can think about it, because otherwise we will continue to think about these things not in terms of the longevity of it or like how these things continue to play out as a continuum. We will think about it as a new thing. And nothing is new under the sun. It is just a continuum. Or as one of the participants in my project said, same old song, same old, different day, same song, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so it's in that space that I challenge us to think about these things. And also to be clear that even when we talk about like the current, and because it's the elephant in the room, so we can't ignore that, the whole rollback of the Voting Rights Act and things like that, understanding that voting in and of itself is a tool.
Mm-hmm.
It is one tool of many in a deeply enriched toolkit within Black history. Black folks didn't start resisting and mobilizing at the passage of the Voting Rights Act. Black folks were doing that well before the Voting Rights Act. It is the fact that had been the case, right, that made the climate and otherwise conducive for putting forth a Voting Rights Act. And so I say that to say that when people ask, well, what should we, how do we fix this or how do we change this? What I argue, at least thinking in historical context, is that the same way that Black resistance and Black advancement didn't begin with the Voting Rights Act, also understand that it is not the lone or only tool in the toolkit for moving the community forward. And so while it is an important one, there are other actions, collective actions, historically, that have taken place before it and likewise can be true after it.
This is why whenever people, especially Black folks, say, well, my vote doesn't do anything. I voted for somebody, they didn't get in office and everything fell apart. And my question is always, but what did you do after you voted? Did you go to the meetings? Did you go to community meetings?
Because that's just one tool.
Because of your representative. Did you go? And did you call? Did you write letters? Or because it wasn't the person you voted for, did you just fall back and say, well, okay, I hope they do the right thing? And hope isn't a plan. As a matter of fact, even more so, and I'm actually kind of scolding myself when I say this, even more so, because I'm not crazy about my representative, but even more so if it's somebody you didn't vote for, I'm thinking that's even more of a reason to dig in and to say, listen, when you go to D.C., you better do the right thing. And I didn't vote for you, but I do live in your district. So I'm here,
Yes.
and I am demanding action one way or the other, and so I think when you say voting, I'm glad you put it that way. You're right. When you vote, that's the beginning of a process, I think, of representation is what you're kind of getting at.
It's part of the process.
It's part of the process.
It is a tool, yes. And there's a lot, I really want to make that clear because I feel like if we don't have that conversation, there's a lot of emphasis on the rollback of the Voting Rights Act, and rightfully so. So let me be clear about that. Rightfully so, that should be there should be heightened attention about that, right? It's a reason why that was fought for. Countless reasons, and we can run a gamut on it. And I think all of us are well versed in some ways in understanding that. The only point that I'm making is that it is one tool. It is not the end all be all. It is an important tool, and I encourage everybody to be at the poll. Across race, across socioeconomic position, all of that. Everybody should be voting. But I also want to be clear that when I account for Black resistance and collective action, that didn't begin with the passage of the Voting Rights Act. That had been going and ongoing prior to it. It made it possible for the Voting Rights Act. And so I want us to kind of keep that in mind, right? That the Voting Rights Act in and of itself did not determine our ability to collectively act as a people. We had already been doing that. And so likewise should be true in thinking about things moving forward. That yes, the ballot is important, understanding who's on the ballot, being educated about the candidates and so forth, and all people should certainly be engaging and practicing civic rights, right? But also understand that our history as Black people, as African descendant people, does not begin and end at the ballot box. There's more to this kit, more resources, more direct actions and so forth. And I'm speaking non-violently. I want to make that clear also. There are more things that can be transpiring that doesn't necessarily begin and end at the ballot box.
All right, we got a couple of calls, and we're going to have to go really, really fast. Ryan, give me about 30 seconds. What you got?
30 seconds? Okay. Let's see here. Good morning, by the way.
Morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. There are things that are amendable, and there are things that will not be forgiven as well.
All right.
All right. That's straightforward. And I absolutely agree with you because.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
You got more?
Well, not more articulate than you.
All right. Thank you,
sorry.
Ryan. Appreciate it.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Let's go to
He
commercial.
paused for a second. I said, he's right at it.
No,
okay.
Well, thank you for sticking to the 30 seconds,
Thank
Ryan.
you.
It's probably like 15. All right, so let's go to break right now. We're going to see if we can get one caller in. Medi Francis in for Will Sutton. Dr. Andrea Boyles is joining us on the Good Morning Show on WBOK.
He said not more than you.
All day long.
That's...
This is the Bloomberg Black Business Beat. Spelman College president Rosalind Brewer came from the business world. She's held posts in the C-suite at Starbucks and Sam's Club and was CEO at Walgreens, making her one of the most successful Black women on Wall Street. And now she's trying to take some of that experience in business and use it to help Spelman.
One of the things I've committed to this board of trustees at Spelman College is that I will try to bring as much business to this institution as I possibly can. And that would be through a new financial or business model. You know, we live off of very few sources of revenue. But if we looked at our institutions through the lens of what we could monetize, things like our online learning programs, that right now through the number of, high school students that need certifications, could we provide those?
Spelman was recently one of several schools that billionaire Arthur Blank donated to. I'm Bloomberg's Justin Milliner on the Black Business Beat.
Lowe's has the brands pros trust to get the job done. You can now shop new Catalyst fencing solutions and save big when you do. 10% off when you buy in bulk. Plus, save $180 on a DeWalt 12-inch dual bevel sliding compound miter saw. Now just $449. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 5/6 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Confidence is knowing you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. That's what it feels like to take on your workday with Cintas. They make sure your AEDs are up to date, your fire extinguishers are tested and inspected, your floor mats are cleaned and delivered, and your workwear looks good, feels good, and is freshly laundered with the Cintas Apparel Plus program. So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com and get ready for the workday.
Hey, this is D. Riley from the 90s Hits R&B Jams. Make sure you listen to WBOK 1230 AM every Saturday night from 7 until 9 p.m. I'll be giving you the best R&B jams from the 90s. That's right, all your favorites and more. With me, D. Riley, your host of the 90s Hits, right here on WBOK 1230 AM. Or listen online at WBOK1230.com. WBOK, the station you listen to longer.
This is The Law in Your Legacy. I'm attorney Pete Hamilton.
I'm attorney Ryan Hamilton.
If you had $1 million, would you leave it to an 18-year-old?
Hopefully not, but that's exactly what can happen with a simple will. The money goes straight to your kids when they hit the legal age, no guardrails.
A trust lets you control when and how they receive their inheritance. You can set ages, milestones, or even make sure they finish school first.
Give them security, not a spending spree.
This is not legal advice. That's just a tip brought to you by Liberty Bank and Trust. For more information, go to libertybank.net or contact us at 504-915-5016.
A careless driver can change your life in an instant. Do you know what to do or who to call? If you've been injured in a motor vehicle accident and do not have an attorney, call Auto Accident Help Desk for a free consultation. We can answer all of your questions and estimate the potential value of your case. Call Auto Accident Help Desk and connect with an expert personal injury attorney.
Call 800-269-4524. 800-269-4524.
Don't worry how to handle your medical bills, lost wages, and pain. We will get you the money you deserve.
They got me way more than the insurance company offered.
The consultation is free, and you do not pay any legal fees unless we win or settle your case. Make the smart call. If you've been injured in an auto accident, call Auto Accident Help Desk for a free legal consultation.
Call 800-269-4524. 800-269-4524. 800-269-4524.
This is Andronika Morris, host of Put Housing First. Join us every Tuesday at 12 o'clock, where we will discuss how housing affects every aspect of our lives and what's necessary, what's needed to guarantee housing for all. Join us every Tuesday at 12 o'clock as we dig down deep onto the issues that affect all of us.
Step back in time and experience the moments that shaped our world at the National World War II Museum, located in the heart of the Warehouse District in New Orleans. This world-renowned museum brings history to life, telling America's story in the war that changed everything, why it was fought, how it was won, and what it means today. From immersive exhibits to powerful personal stories, this is more than a museum. It's an experience. Plan your visit today at nationalww2museum.org. World War II Museum, where history lives.
Good morning, wake up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
All right, welcome back to the Good Morning Show. Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton. And bad news for the people on the phone right now. Miss Jones, Don, we love y'all, but we only got a minute in this show. And so we want to go ahead and get out of the way for the front porch. But Dr. Boyles, with about 60 seconds, I will give you the parting shot. What is your message to Black New Orleans right now, especially as far as collective action?
I'm going to encourage us to love on each other. I know that's been like probably totally unexpected, given that I've had so many different academic type, and historical conversations.
I get it,
but that's important too. And I say that because I am determined to not be a person, and I'm encouraging other people to not be detached, right? Like if ever there was a time to not be detached, that is now. It's so important that our community, particularly as Black folks face disproportionately all sorts of things from one extreme to another, that we also make a point to love on one another. And I literally mean that, because people are mentally and emotionally worn. Battle fatigue is real. Battle fatigue is real. And from leadership on down, people are just feeling beat down to the ground, mentally, emotionally, economically, and otherwise, right? Like we can run a gamut on that. And that is unfortunately often the case, but it is even exacerbated in this particular climate. And so I'm going to say, let's do the best that we can to keep one another encouraged in our communities, beyond our communities. Let's also make sure as best as we can that we are educated. It is so important that we are not ignorant across spaces and places, that we understand what's going on. If we can't find the answer, let's reach out to folks who may be a little more positioned. Maybe it's the neighbor next door that has some better insight. let's be clear even in that we also stay clear of misinformation and disinformation that is becoming increasingly pervasive, not just in other places and spaces, but also in our community as well. To be cognizant, right? And to also do fact checking about things that we hear. Yes.
Malinformation as well.
Absolutely. So I'm going to say, again, let's just be very vigilant. We're smart people. We've always been that. And so let's do what we have learned to do best from our ancestors. Let's hold on to one another. Let's keep imagining. Imagining is something we think about. Also, I do in my work, imagining liberation, right? And moving forward with hope in our spaces and places.
All right, we will do that. Thank you so much. Thanks for hanging out with me today.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you to the community. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate you all. There's no big I's and little U's in this thing.
Amen. That's what I'm talking about. All right, I'm going to be back tomorrow in for Will Sutton. In the meantime, the front porch is coming up. Kemba, Graylin, they're on deck. Hang out with them because they need friends. I'm Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton. Dr. Andrea Boyles, thanks a lot. Jared, thank you, my friend. We are the Good Morning Show on